Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
This was my home. Or it was supposed to be. I spent 10 years of my life, every spare moment, every dollar I had, designing and building this place with my own two hands. On my own land. Land that I bought free and clear, specifically because it was outside the reach of any homeowners association. And then, one Tuesday morning, an HOA I never joined, an HOA that had zero legal claim to my property, showed up with a bulldozer and tore it all down. They thought I was just some guy they could steamroll. They figured they held all the cards because they had a 3-ring binder full of rules and a board president with a god complex. What they didn't know is that their little demolition project wasn't just illegal. It was a felony. They thought they were closing the book on me. They were wrong. They were handing me all the evidence I needed to destroy their entire crooked organization. If you want to understand how it all went down and how I clawed my way back from rock bottom, we need to start at the very beginning. It all started about 15 years ago. I'm a carpenter by trade, and for as long as I can remember, my one great ambition wasn't to get rich or famous. It was to build my own house. I didn't just want to hire some crew. I wanted to feel the grain of every board, drive every single nail, and know that every square inch of the place came from my own hard work. I worked a full-time job and spent my weekends hustling side gigs, socking away every penny. I lived in a crummy little apartment, drove a beater, and ate more ramen than any person probably should. All of it was for the dream. After 5 years of saving, I found it, a perfect 5-acre plot of land tucked away at the end of a quiet county road. It was mostly wooded, with a gentle slope leading down to a little creek. But the best part, it was unincorporated county land. I spent weeks with my lawyer and at the county clerk's office, triple-checking every deed and title. The property was clean. No covenants, no restrictions, and most importantly, no homeowners association. It was bordered by a state forest on one side and the back end of a newer, perfectly manicured development called Willow Creek Estates. The sales agent was crystal clear. "Your property line is right here," he said, pointing to a row of ancient oak trees. "Their HOA jurisdiction ends there. They have zero say over what you do on your land." That one sentence sealed the deal. I signed the papers that day, feeling like the luckiest man alive. For the next 10 years, that land was my whole life. I spent the first year just clearing a space, carefully deciding which trees had to go and which could stay. I designed the house myself, a modest, 2-story craftsman with a big workshop out back. It wasn't a mansion, but it was all mine. My 2 brothers and I poured the foundation. I framed the walls, feeling the whole thing take shape around me. I'll never forget standing on the subfloor of the 2nd story, just looking out over the trees and feeling a sense of pride I'd never known. Every weekend, every vacation, was spent on that property. I learned plumbing from old-timers and watched hundreds of hours of videos to figure out the electrical wiring. I even milled some of the lumber myself from the trees I'd cleared. Sometimes my friends would come out with pizza and beer, and we'd hang drywall or lay flooring. It wasn't just a construction site. It was a place where things were being created, a place filled with good memories. The house came to life slowly, built not just with materials, but with moments. It was the physical proof of my entire life's work. By last spring, it was finally done. The floors were polished, the paint was dry, the last light fixture was hung. I moved in my stuff and spent that first night just walking from room to room, completely overwhelmed. I had actually done it. I had built my dream. I'd been living in my house for about 3 months when I had my first run-in with the Willow Creek Estates HOA. I was out front planting a little garden when a big, fancy SUV pulled into my gravel driveway. A woman with a severe haircut and an expensive pantsuit got out. She was holding a clipboard and radiated an air of unearned authority. "Good morning," she said, though her tone was anything but. "I'm Karen, the president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association." I stood up, wiping the dirt off my hands. "Nice to meet you. I'm Mark. Can I help you with something?" She scanned my property, her nose wrinkling just a little. "Yes, we've had some complaints. Your mailbox isn't compliant with community standards." I glanced at the simple, sturdy mailbox I'd put in. "Community standards? I'm not in your community. My property isn't part of the HOA." She gave me a tight, condescending smile. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding. The board voted to annex the adjacent properties for aesthetic cohesion. Your land is now under the jurisdiction of the Willow Creek HOA. You should have gotten the welcome packet and the fee schedule. I was floored. I knew for a fact that was legally impossible. An HOA can't just decide to absorb a property whose owner hasn't agreed to join. I think you're mistaken, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I bought this land specifically because there is no HOA. The deed is ironclad. You have no authority here. Karen's fake smile evaporated. Mr. Mark, she said, like my name was something she'd stepped in. The decision is made. We had a survey done, and our boundaries were adjusted. You're a member now. That mailbox has to be replaced with the approved model. It's $250. And that gravel driveway is a violation. It needs to be paved. You have 30 days, or the fines start. She didn't even wait for me to answer. She just climbed back into her SUV and drove off, leaving me standing in a cloud of dust and disbelief. This had to be a joke, some kind of bizarre power trip. I went inside, grabbed my thick folder of legal documents, and found the deed. It was exactly as I remembered. My property was explicitly excluded. I called my lawyer the next morning. He was just as baffled. He assured me they didn't have a legal leg to stand on and drafted a sharp cease and desist letter, citing the property laws and the exact language in my deed. We sent it certified mail. I thought that would be the end of it. It was only the beginning. The cease and desist letter might as well have been sent into a black hole. A week later, the first official violation notice showed up. It was a professionally printed letter detailing my so-called infractions: the non-compliant mailbox, the unpaved driveway, and they'd added a new one: unapproved landscaping, my vegetable garden. The fine was $100 for each, with a nasty little note that the fines would double every 30 days they went unpaid. I called the number on the letterhead. Karen herself answered. "We received your lawyer's cute little letter," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Our legal counsel assures us the board's vote was binding. The annexation is filed with the county. You're a member, and you will comply. Pay the fine, or this gets worse." I hung up, my heart pounding with pure rage. Filed with the county? How? I spent the next day at the county records office, and that's where I found the first piece of her fraud. There, in the public record, was a recently filed addendum to the Willow Creek Estates CC&Rs. It included a crudely drawn map that now showed my 5 acres swallowed up by their territory. It was signed by Karen and the HOA board. But the part that made my blood run cold was the attachment, a forged document designed to look like a deed, implying I had voluntarily handed over covenant rights to the association. My signature was crudely forged at the bottom. This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate criminal act. Filing a false document against a property is a felony. My lawyer and I immediately filed a challenge with the county and fired off another, much stronger letter to the HOA, letting them know we had proof of document forgery and were ready to press criminal charges. Surely, I thought, this would stop them. Any rational person caught red-handed committing a felony would backpedal. But Karen wasn't rational. She was high on power. The violation notices kept coming, getting more and more absurd. My truck, parked on my own property, was a commercial vehicle violation. The small pile of leftover lumber by my workshop was an unapproved structure. The color I painted my own front door was out of harmony with the community palette. Within 6 months, the bogus fines had snowballed to over $50,000. They were mailing threats weekly, each one more aggressive than the last. Then came the lien. They used that mountain of fake fines to put a lien on my house. A lien is a legal claim against your property for a debt you owe. But a fraudulent one, filed to defraud someone, is another serious crime. It meant I couldn't sell or refinance the house until it was cleared. It was a dark cloud hanging over everything I built. My lawyer promised me it was an illegal, unenforceable lien and we'd win in court. But the courts are slow. Karen and her board were betting I'd run out of time or money to fight. The harassment turned personal. HOA board members started parking across the street, just taking pictures of my house. One morning, I found a dead squirrel shoved into my non-compliant mailbox. I was living in a constant state of siege, a prisoner in the very home that was supposed to be my sanctuary. But I refused to break. The law was on my side. The truth was on my side. What I didn't get was that they had something more powerful than the truth: a friend in the county office. The end came on a Tuesday in October. I left for work at sunrise, same as any other day. My lawyer had a hearing scheduled for the next week to get an injunction against the HOA and have the phony lien thrown out. I was actually feeling hopeful, like we were finally about to turn a corner. Around 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor down the road, an old guy named George. His voice was frantic. "Mark, you need to get home. Right now. There's a bulldozer at your house." I couldn't process it. "A bulldozer? George, what are you talking about?" "They're tearing it down. Son, the whole house. There's a crew here, and they're tearing it all down." I dropped my tools and sprinted to my truck, my mind just spinning. The 30-minute drive back felt like an eternity. I must have called George 10 times, and every call was a dagger. They just went through the front wall. "Mark, the whole porch is gone." When I finally screeched onto my road, I saw it. A massive yellow bulldozer was sitting right where my living room used to be. The front of my house was a gaping wound of splintered wood and shattered glass. A crew of guys in hard hats was standing around, and off to the side, wearing that same smug, triumphant smirk, was Karen. I slammed the truck in park and stumbled out, my legs shaking. The air was thick with the dust of my pulverized dream. "What have you done?" I screamed, my voice cracking. "What have you done?" Karen just calmly walked over, holding a piece of paper. "We're enforcing the bylaws. Mark, your property had multiple unresolved violations." A burly foreman stepped between us. "Sorry, pal, we've got a work order." He showed me the paper Karen was holding. It was an emergency demolition order, signed by a county code enforcement officer. The reason listed was structural instability and hazardous materials, referencing my pile of leftover lumber. It was all a lie. They had found a crooked official willing to sign a bogus order, bypassing the entire legal system to destroy my life. This was an extreme and wildly unlawful act, as even in legitimate cases, demolition requires due process, court orders, and hearings, none of which I ever got. I stood there, surrounded by the ruins of 10 years of my life, completely powerless. I saw the custom bookshelves I had just finished, now just a pile of splinters. I saw the bay window where I drank my coffee every morning, shattered into a million pieces. The bulldozer roared back to life and plowed through the wall of my workshop. I just broke. I fell to my knees in my unpaved driveway and watched my entire world get turned into garbage. Karen watched for a few more minutes, then got in her luxury SUV and drove away, leaving me in the wreckage. I don't know how long I knelt there in the dirt. It felt like forever. The demolition crew, seeing my raw despair and finally realizing something was terribly wrong, had stopped work and were talking in hushed tones. My neighbor, George, had called the sheriff. When the deputies arrived, they were just as stunned as I was. They looked at the demolition order, at the wreckage of my home, and then at me. Karen's plan was audacious, but it had a fatal flaw. It created a massive, undeniable crime scene. This wasn't a civil squabble over mailboxes anymore. This was felony destruction of property. The deputies immediately separated the demo crew, who, realizing they'd been duped into committing a crime, were more than happy to talk. The foreman handed over the work order Karen had given him, the one with the fraudulent claims. He told the police she'd paid the deposit with a check straight from the HOA's bank account. That was the first crack in our fortress. That evening, I sat in my lawyer's office, feeling like a ghost. But my lawyer, David, was practically vibrating with energy. "She's done, Mark," he said, his voice filled with a cold rage. "She overplayed her hand so badly that she's given us everything. This isn't just a civil suit anymore. This is a criminal investigation." The next few days were a blur. David was a force of nature. He got an emergency injunction to stop any more action on the property and had the entire site sealed off as a crime scene. We brought in our own investigators. We deposed the whole demolition crew. We subpoenaed the HOA's financial records. We filed a massive civil lawsuit against Karen personally, against the HOA as an entity, and against every single board member who voted for this. The suit wasn't just for the value of my house. It was for fraud, emotional distress, and massive punitive damages. But the real turning point, the secret weapon I didn't even know I had, came from inside the county office. A young clerk who had processed the demolition order came forward as a whistleblower. She was terrified, but her conscience went out. She told investigators that her boss, the official who signed the order, was a close friend of Karen's. She had emails where Karen promised him a generous thank you from the HOA's discretionary fund for his quick work. It was the smoking gun. It was proof of bribery and corruption. With a whistleblower and a paper trail, the district attorney's office launched its own criminal investigation. They quickly found that Karen wasn't just a power-hungry HOA president. She was running a criminal enterprise. Her scheme was to use bogus liens and fake violations to illegally seize properties, demolish them, and have the HOA sell the cleared land to a developer she was in business with. My house was just her latest target. They uncovered a pattern of embezzlement and kickbacks that had been going on for years. Karen thought she was untouchable. She thought her little binder of rules put her above the law. But she was about to find out that when you commit crimes this brazen, the law comes for you. The legal battle was swift and brutal. The HOA's insurance company took one look at the mountain of evidence. The forgery, the fraudulent lien, the bribery, and immediately denied their claim, stating their policy didn't cover intentional criminal acts by the board. That left the HOA and its board members personally on the hook for everything. Suddenly, they weren't a powerful board anymore. They were just a group of people facing financial ruin. The other board members, realizing Karen had led them off a legal cliff, turned on her in a heartbeat. One by one, their depositions told the same story. They never saw the forged deed, and Karen had assured them everything was legal. They threw her under the bus to save themselves. The criminal trial came first. The DA had an airtight case. They had the forged documents, the bank records, and the whistleblower's testimony. Karen walked into court on day one still wearing that arrogant smirk, still thinking she could talk her way out of it. That arrogance shattered when her friend from the county office took a plea deal and testified against her, laying out the entire conspiracy. The jury was out for less than an hour. They found Karen guilty on all counts: felony destruction of property, document forgery, bribery, and racketeering. The judge, calling her actions a shocking abuse of power that tears at the fabric of community trust, sentenced her to 15 years in state prison. I watched as they put her in handcuffs, her smug expression finally replaced by one of pure, panicked terror. My civil lawsuit was next. With the criminal conviction as undeniable proof, the HOA had no defense. Their lawyer told them to settle. The final judgment was staggering. The court ordered them to pay me $1.5 million for the replacement value of my home and everything in it. On top of that, the judge levied an additional $3 million in punitive damages against the HOA and Karen personally for their malicious and fraudulent conduct. The board members who stood by and let it happen weren't spared. The court found them grossly negligent and held them personally liable for a portion of the damages, forcing them to sell their own homes in Willow Creek Estates. The massive financial hit completely bankrupted the Homeowners Association. It was forced to dissolve, its charter revoked for good. It's been 2 years. The lot is clear now, but you don't just forget something like this. The settlement money allowed me to rebuild, but it could never replace what was really lost. The 10 years of my life I poured into that first house. The sense of violation still lingers, but something good did come out of all the ugliness. With the Willow Creek Estates HOA dissolved, all those homeowners are finally free. They can plant gardens, choose their own mailboxes, and live without the fear of a threatening letter showing up. In a strange way, my fight became their freedom. As for me, I'm rebuilding on the very same spot. The new house looks a lot like the old one, but this time, it's not just a symbol of hard work. It's a monument to resilience. It stands on land that I had to fight for, land that a corrupt organization tried to steal with lies and a bulldozer. They tore down my house, but they couldn't tear down my spirit. They thought their power could crush an ordinary person. They learned the hard way that when you push someone too far, you might just find out how powerful they can really be.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share.